So unfortunately, it doesn't start off with hitting, because if it started off with hitting, if you got hit on a first date, you'd never go back out with them, right?
Right.
But that's not how it is. It's more subtle than that. And it starts off with like, shut up. Don't be so stupid. What's wrong with you? You make poor choices. You make bad decisions, making you second guess yourself. And one of the worst things that I've seen is the financial abuse, not having access to finances.
Welcome to the Herlihy Family Law Podcast, your trusted source for expert insights on navigating family law matters with clarity and care. Whether you're tackling tough decisions or seeking guidance for your family's future, we're here to help. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Herlihy Family Law Podcast. I'm your host, Alison Herlihy. Today, I'm joined by Joan Duncan from Penelope House for an important conversation about domestic violence, safety, and the resources available to survivors and their children in our community. Penelope House provides crisis intervention, emergency shelter, court advocacy, outreach services, children's programming, prevention education, and long-term support for survivors. Domestic violence can affect every part of a person's life, including their family, finances, safety, and legal options. Joan is here to help us better understand what domestic violence can look like, why it can be so difficult to leave, and where people can turn for help. Joan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Allison. I love being on here and talking to you about this.
Yeah. Well, so little backstory about Joan. Joan and I worked together at Penelope House way back in 2001.
Yeah. A long time ago.
That's we're aging ourselves, right?
Yes.
We started work there at the exact same time, and I worked there when I graduated from college until I went to law school, and Joan's still there today doing the good work. So thank
26
you.
years.
Yeah, but who's counting, right?
Right.
Well, to start, can you tell our listeners a little bit about Penelope House and the role it plays in the community?
So I think that the story about Penelope House and how it began is fascinating, because it was 47 years ago. We've been around for 47 years. So domestic violence is not a new problem, but it's definitely still a huge problem across our whole globe. And what I find so fascinating about it is that 47 years ago, when Dr. Catherine Kamanis began Penelope House, there were no other shelters in our state. We were the 5th shelter in the whole country. So there were only 4 other shelters when we started.
Yeah.
And the reason she started it was because she worked for the Department of Human Resources, which we all know that's who takes care of children who are abused. And she said that she would get these calls, that DHR would get these calls all the time saying, my husband's in jail, or my husband's in prison, and he's calling me from prison saying that he's going to kill me when he gets out in a couple months, or in a month, or in 10 days, or whenever. And he's going to kill the kids. And I don't know what to do. And DHR would say to these women, we'll come and get your kids for you, and you're on your own. And that to me is just, I mean, it just is. It's crazy. It's so upsetting to think about that. So Catherine was on her way to Montgomery one day for a meeting, and she heard on the radio Dr. Joyce Brothers talking about the shelters, domestic violence shelters in Europe. They were mostly in England, and that's kind of where it started, where they would have these shelters. And so when Catherine went back to like people in her community in Mobile and started talking to them about a domestic violence shelter for Mobile, people were up in arms about it. They were furious. They were like, this is professional suicide. Who do you think you are? You don't have the right to go into somebody's home and tell them what they can and can't do with their family.
Wow.
You know, that you just think back on that now. And so how she started it is she went to her Greek Orthodox church and to the women's group there, the Daughters of Penelope, and told them, hey, we need to start this shelter. And so they did, with, I think it was like $47 in their bank account or something they had, and they started the shelter. And then it grew and grew and grew till now we have, you know, a very nice shelter. that we actually got added on to last year. So
I
we
heard about
are
that.
the,
That's exciting.
yeah, so we were the first shelter in the whole state of Alabama and the 5th in the whole country. And another thing about it is that when you were saying, you know, what do we do in our community? We save people's lives in our community is really what we do, because that's the reason we have to be in a secret location, because people downplay domestic violence so much. They think they don't understand how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
You understand it not only because you've worked here, but you understand it because you are an attorney, you're a lawyer, and you see it firsthand. You work with people who have gone through this.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you know all too well, Alison, how bad it can be. So
yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I've never been involved with a case where a death was involved, but I can't say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Well, so when people hear the term domestic violence, they may think of only physical abuse, but what are some other forms that abuse can take?
So unfortunately, it doesn't start off with hitting, because if it started off with hitting, if you got hit on a first date, you'd never go back out with them, right?
Right.
But that's not how it is. It's more subtle than that. And it starts off with like, shut up, don't be so stupid. What's wrong with you? You make poor choices. You make bad decisions, making you second guess yourself. And one of the worst things that I've seen is the financial abuse, not having access to finances, not being able to leave because you don't have the financial stability, or not being allowed to work, those kinds of things. It's way more subtle than that in the beginning. It's verbal abuse. It's sexual abuse, raping you. I'll never forget when we first started here, we were down at the shelter, and I was outside because I was trying to get to know some of the people better. And this one lady, I was telling her how cute her kids were. And she said, and she looked so sad when I told her that. And she said, yeah, they're cute, but every time I look at them, all I can think about is that all 5 of them were a product of rape.
Oh, God.
Because when you think about rape, that's all about power and control. And that's really all domestic violence is your partner wanting to have power and control over you.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, and people really downplay this a lot. When we talk about verbal abuse, they're like, oh, come on, like nobody would be able to do that to me. Nobody would be able to make me feel bad about myself. Yes, they would. Yes, they could. They could definitely do that. You know, don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say that if you've never been in that situation.
Right. Well, you know, and lots of people grow up and in their family of origin, like verbal and physical abuse might be common.
Exactly.
And it's familiar, you know, like
it's that cycle.
A lot of people gravitate toward what feels familiar.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. What are some of the early warning signs of an abusive or controlling relationship that people might overlook?
So if somebody is trying to, well, if you start dating somebody and they start maybe putting your friends down or saying things like, you know, I just love you so much that I don't even want to hang out with my friends anymore. And then when you say, well, okay, well, I still want to see my friends. What? I love you so much. I don't even want to see my friends, but you want to go out and see your friends, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I want you all to myself.
I want you all to myself. And at first, especially think about a teenager. They're so easily swayed by things like that, you know, because at first you're like, oh, wow, they love me so much. They just want to spend time with me. That's flattering. But you have to imagine it on down the road a couple months when it's, you know, shut up. You're so stupid. Get over here. You can't go out on your own. Did you go to the grocery store by yourself? I told you not to do that. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think too, like isolation is one of the early warning signs, because
definitely isolating.
Someone that's abusive, you know, pulls someone away from their friends and family and their support system. When it gets to where they do realize that they need to leave, they don't have anywhere to turn.
Exactly. You know? They keep you away from so many people that then when you do want to leave, you don't have that support system to go to.
Yeah. Well, that leads right into our next question. Why can it be so difficult for someone to leave? Because, you know, a lot of us say like, well, they should just leave. They should just leave. You know, like it's so easy.
In our society, we're so bad about that. We re-victimize people so badly with it. Well, that never happened to me because I'm too smart. I would never let somebody do that to me. That's so bad for a victim to hear that, because that's exactly what you're saying to them, exactly what that abuser says to them. You're stupid. that would never happen to me. I'm too smart for that, right? So when you think about it, the number one reason really people don't leave is that they're scared because they've been threatened. They've been told, if you try to leave, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill the kids. And most murder suicides are domestic violence.
Yeah.
And we hear about murder suicides all the time, right here in our community. And also like financial stuff. If you don't have any access to finances, if they've kept all your finances away from you, if you haven't been allowed to work, or maybe you don't have any work experience, or maybe they haven't let you use birth control and you have like 5 kids. How are you going to take care of 5 kids and you don't have anything on your resume, or you don't have any experience?
And then you've
or
been
they haven't let
isolated
you,
for your support system system. So it's not like you can call your parents or whoever.
exactly, because your parents are probably fed up with you by this time, right?
Yeah.
Or your siblings are fed up with you. They're like, oh no, not that again.
What are some of the biggest barriers that victims face when they're trying to get help or make a safety plan?
I think self-doubt, for sure. All that stuff that's been said to them. I think just as a general rule in society where we victimize them so much, so it makes it hard for them to reach out and get services. They feel so isolated. Back to isolation, and they feel so isolated about that. One of the things that we see so much here is that when they call to get help, they downplay it, because even though they shouldn't feel embarrassed, they always say they're embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed. I've never talked to a victim ever that they didn't say they were embarrassed. It's like, you shouldn't be embarrassed. You're the victim.
Right.
This is no fault of your own. This is someone choosing to do this to you.
Yeah.
And that's something else that really infuriates me, is when people are like, well, what about them? Like, aren't you going to get them help? The people that were doing this? Well, no, it's a choice they're making. They need to stop. They can stop doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, you're a grown adult. I mean, you shouldn't need somebody to tell you not to beat up your partner.
Exactly.
I mean, everybody should know you're not supposed to do that.
Everyone should know that's not okay. And it's against the law. Right. Yeah.
How does domestic violence affect children, even if the children aren't necessarily the ones that are being hit?
So that goes right to my heart and soul. I have done this for 26 years. And even though I was a court advocate for a year, what my passion and my love is going to schools and talking to kids, because that is where the cycle starts. When you let your child grow up in a home where that's what they're witnessing, that's what they think is normal.
Yeah.
Children learn what they live. That old saying that people always say, it's so true. What that environment a child grows up in is what they learn.
Yeah.
And that's what they accept. And so then they grow up and they do it. And if we're not talking about it,
either be an abuser or be a victim themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you see it causes them to have such bad post-traumatic stress disorder. So many issues with that kind of thing. It causes them to lash out at school and get in trouble at school. They can't concentrate at school because they're so worried about what's going on at home. And so it causes children so many bad problems.
Yeah.
And
we know so much more now than we even did 25 years ago about
oh my gosh, yes.
Adverse childhood experiences create negative effects for the rest of your life, even poor physical health outcomes.
Oh, definitely. And it causes them to abuse drugs and alcohol. So many other issues come from it.
Well, if someone calls the Penelope House 24-hour crisis line, what can they expect? What kind of support could they get?
So this is what they can expect. You can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there'll be a person on the other end that's going to ask you a lot of questions. Not super invasive questions, but they're just going to ask you what's going on at your home. What kind of things are happening. They're going to ask you some leading questions because, like I said earlier, a lot of victims downplay it. So they're going to ask you some leading questions like, has anyone physically abused you? Has someone slapped you or hit you? Just because we need to know how serious it is. And then they'll ask you other questions like, do you have any medical needs? Do you need to go to the hospital? How many children do you have? What ages are your children? Are any of them special needs? And that's not going to cause us to not let you come in, but we just need to know what your needs are so that when you get here,
Right.
we can meet those needs for you. So they're just going to ask them questions like that. And then sometimes someone might say they don't want to come in, and we'll say, well, how about if you just want to do an outreach appointment? And so they can become part of our outreach groups. And we have groups that meet during the evenings that they can come to. And they can also do one-on-one with our outreach coordinator. So they can come in during the day or in the evening if they need to have an appointment. Especially, you have to be really flexible with things like that, because they'll need to come when their abuser is not home.
Right.
And that can be complicated. So we try to make it not complicated, as the less complicated as possible, so that they don't have to worry about those kinds of things.
Well, so Penelope House, like we said earlier, offers emergency shelter, advocacy, case management, support groups, and other services. Can you explain how those resources can help somebody begin to rebuild their life?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So one of the main things that you see with victims is the verbal abuse, the brainwashing, the threats have torn them down so deeply that they need a lot of encouragement. And that's the main thing that you need to encourage somebody to get out of it, is to kind of like deprogram them, honestly, to get them out of that mindset of, I'm worthless, I'm a bad parent, I'm stupid, I can't stand on my own 2 feet. So that's one of the things that really does help them so much. Also, this is something you probably remember from when we'd be at the shelter. One of the main things you'd hear the next morning after someone had come in is they would say things like, that's the best night's sleep I've had in years. Because that's another thing that they go through, is sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
I've had so many people tell me I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up with a knife at my throat, or they'd throw hot water on me, or they'd kick me into
the house, turning all the lights on so you can't
Yes,
sleep. Yeah.
playing really loud music, just always being so scared to fall asleep, which is, I can't imagine. That's torture to me. I love sleep. Sleep's the best. And I mean, it's just such a needed thing for your body, right?
Yeah.
And if you're always going to sleep worried about what somebody's going to do, that's terrifying. So when they come into shelter, just having the first few days, just being able to rest and sleep and get your bearings and be able to think straight again, because lack of sleep makes you crazy, makes you insane. You can't make good decisions when you're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
And also being able to reconnect with children if you have them, because children that go through this, that's another thing that we see with children. They act a lot older than their age when they've had to be the person at home that's trying to keep the lid on things and trying to make things go smoothly and keep that abuser from lashing out. So being able to reconnect with your children and let them be children again, that's so important. And once you get your bearings, then it's easier to be with a case manager and make a plan for yourself. Like, okay, this is what I need to do from here on. And that's what we help you do. Make a plan so that you can go live independently and not have to go back to that abuser, because people leave on average 5 to 7 times before they leave for good or before they're killed. So it takes a long time to get that mindset okay again.
And so does the case manager actually help people like figure out how to get an apartment or find employment?
Yes, we figure that. We go through all that with them. We help them with, maybe you need a voucher for Section 8, that kind of thing. We help them get jobs. We help them get school if they need school. We we have our transitional housing program. So if you go through our outreach program or our shelter program and you qualify for a transitional housing spot, then you can stay in one of our transitional housing apartments for 2 years, and we pay your rent for 2 years, and that helps you kind of get on your feet. And we still help you with food. We still help you with bills. We still help you with your kids. You come back to shelter once a week and do group therapy. So all those kind of things that help you realize, hey, I am okay. I can do this.
Yeah. And Penelope House provides childcare during the group therapy, right?
Definitely. Yeah. You used to do that.
I used to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Before you were a lawyer.
Yeah. Let's talk about the court advocacy program. So you mentioned you worked as a court advocate for a year. What exactly does a court advocate do, and why can that support be so important for people navigating the legal system?
So Penelope House is located in Mobile, but we take care of Mobile, Washington, Clark, and Choctaw counties. So all those counties have a lot of courts. I mean, a ton, mostly in Mobile County, but we still have all those other counties we need to take care of. So we have a court advocate in every single municipality, every single county. Every one of those courtrooms has a court advocate in there. And we actually have another one at Strickland Youth Center now, because my good friend Linda Jensen, who was the juvenile court judge over there, she was noticing how many people come in there with custody cases that have that going on. So we have that too. And a court advocate, I did it for a year. I loved doing it. We go pull the dockets and we go through to make sure we have all those court advocates, all those dockets that have anything to do with domestic violence. And so we pull all those, and then we send letters and we call the victims, and we let the victims know what our services are and that we're going to be in court the day they're in court, and we're going to be there with them. And we stand with them so that they know that they have an advocate there with them. But we also explain to them what's going to happen in court. What are the possible outcomes? We let them, if they need security, we go get security for court police for them. We make sure that they're safe while they're there. We help them get protection from abuse orders. So all those kinds of things, because even if you haven't done anything wrong, being in court is very intimidating.
Yeah.
So we even let them know like how to dress and what to expect before they even ever get there. Because it's very scary to know that you have to go and face this person that you used to be in love with, or maybe you still are in love with them. And maybe you have children with them.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a terrifying thing to think of,
Mm-hmm.
and they've hurt you at some point. So, you're in there looking at this person that you've been intimate with, and that's a scary thing. So we're just there to be very supportive of them.
From your perspective, what should someone consider before taking legal action, leaving the home, or confronting an abusive partner?
They first and foremost, they need to think about their safety and their children's safety. So you have to be methodical about this. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to be able to get out of this just like that, unless police are on scene and they bring you right to us. This is typically something that's been going on for a while, and you're going to have to make a plan. And that's one of the most important things I think about. And I forgot to tell you this earlier. If you call our crisis line number, even if you don't want to come to shelter, that's okay. We can go over a safety plan with you on the phone, because you have to be methodical about this. You have to get your important documents in order, and you have to be sneaky about it, because they're not going to just let you do this. They're not going to let you leave. They're going to kill you if you try to leave. So you're going to have to remember, I need copies of my children's birth certificates. I need a copy of my birth certificate. I need a copy of my marriage license if I have it, unless we're just living together. I need all those important things, Social Security cards for my kids and myself, driver's license, all that kind of stuff, so that once I do leave, I have that, I can use that to get any kind of like assistance that I might need. So, or assistance for my children that I might need. So, you have to be methodical.
Enroll your children like in a school or something.
Exactly. You have to have all that
certificates. That's going to be
all
hard.
those documents. And but first and foremost, you have to think about safety. How am I going to leave this situation safely? I'm not going to be able to just leave on my own. I'm going to have help for this. The longer you stay in a domestic violence situation, the harder it is to get out of. And so you're going to have to be very insightful about this. and reach out and get help. Let people know that this is going on. Let them know that the abuse is occurring. That's one of the things that we see so often, is that there was a lady a couple of years ago that was killed in Daphne, and both of her children were killed, and the abuser killed himself. She didn't let anyone know this was happening to her. And the kids, they thought it was normal. They didn't like it, I'm sure, but they thought, well, this is what dad does. So, we just have to deal with it. And he had a weapon, and she knew he had a weapon. If your abuser has a weapon, especially a gun, it makes it increases the danger aspect of this like tenfold. You just have to be so careful about things like that. And anytime they leave, if you have a chance to be able to call us. If you have a neighbor that you can confide in, say, hey, if you hear a fight going on, please call the police. And also, that's tricky too, because domestic violence is the most dangerous call that a police officer goes on.
Yeah.
And so they don't always handle domestic violence situations the right way. We train them. We hope that they handle them the right way, but they don't always. But this is the thing about the police. At least if you call them, or if somebody else calls them, there's a record. And when you go to court, you need that record of, look, how many times the police were called to this house. So that's going to help if you can get someone else to help you call the police, or if you can call the police when it's going on, it's going to help.
Well, I mean, even though it's not perfect, I mean, sometimes that's the only thing that's going to stop the situation.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Plenty of people being afraid of going to jail is a pretty good motivator to control their behavior.
We have found that is one thing that will motivate them to not do it again. That is the only thing we've really found that will motivate them not to do it anymore.
What should friends, family members, coworkers, or neighbors do if they suspect that somebody they care about is being abused? How can you help?
So the most important thing you can do is to not let that abuser put distance between you and that victim. Encourage them. Say, I'm really worried about you. I don't like the way they're talking to you, or I don't like the way they act around you, or I don't like that you can't come hang out with us, or that you're never able to come over for Thanksgiving or Easter or Christmas. You don't deserve this. You're important. I care about you. You're a good person. You're a good parent. And we need to always remember this, that this is something that can happen to men too. It doesn't happen as often, as frequently, but it can. And so for us to not do things that gender stereotype people, like man up, that kind of thing. You shouldn't be saying that to people. Mm-hmm. Why do you let her do this to you? Just be like, she shouldn't talk to you that way.
Or like, she's little, she can't hurt you.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I've had that conversation so many times with male clients of mine, and you still have the right to have bodily integrity and not be hit by your spouse, even if they're not injuring you,
Exactly. And we had this gentleman in shelter, and I was so curious. He had his little girl here with him. She was 6. And I said, I'm so curious that when your wife would do this to you, she was hitting him, she talked to him horribly. And words are so impactful. We have to remember that our words matter. What you say to somebody is impactful.
Yeah.
And I said, when she was hitting you or talking to you so badly, why didn't you hit back? I said, I think it's great you didn't, but what made you? And he said, because every time she did it, she had planned this. So she always was so mindful of when she did it. And she always did it in front of our daughter. And I didn't want my daughter to think that's how men treated women. Oh. I never wanted her to see me put my hands on my wife, her mother, or talk to her badly, because I was so afraid that was going to make her feel like, oh, that's okay. Right. Accept that. And it was just his love for his child, which is it's precious. I was like, oh, I just wanted to hug him after that, because it was just like, keep that up, being a good dad. Right. But One thing we have to remember in our society, judges don't always make the right choices. They don't always understand domestic violence the way they need to. And that mom got custody back of that child. She shouldn't have, but she got custody. And my mom, I'm very sensitive about this because my dad had me from the time I was born until I was 5. And then my mom, who was the abuser in our family, she got custody back of me.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that's one of the main reasons I'm so passionate about this.
That's powerful. Yeah. Well, Penelope House also provides prevention education. That's where you and I came up.
Yes.
And community training. So why is education such an important part of addressing domestic violence?
Well, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, that cycle. When children grow up in homes like this, first of all, it's terrifying for them, and they deserve to know that they have a voice and they can use their little voice, that nobody at home should be telling them to not tell about bad things that are happening to them or their family, that they do have a voice and they do deserve to be safe. And I think that's what makes me want to get up every day and do this again, because those babies deserve to be safe and to understand that if they're being scared like that, that's not okay for someone to terrify them like that and to hurt the person that they love so much. I tell kids this all the time because I hear this so much. The 26 years, and I know, Alison, you've heard this too when you were doing this job and in your job now, the amount of animal abuse that goes on with domestic violence.
Yeah.
And the kids tell me horrible stories about animals, and that scares them so badly. And they go on and on about, my puppy was, my dad hit my puppy with a brick and killed it, and we had to watch it die. And the reason dad did it is because he was trying to keep mom from leaving. And so when you hear stories like that, you understand that our children are growing up in some situations that they need help with. And no matter what the situation is, whether their mom's getting hurt or dad's getting hurt, or they're seeing animals being abused or they're being abused, they need people coming into their classroom and explaining to them, this is not okay. Because one of the things that we see so much is that the counselors talk to them about a lot of things, like being good citizens and all that kind of stuff, but they don't talk to them about family violence and family abuse. And it's going on so frequently. Over 3 million children just in our country alone grow up in homes where domestic violence is going on.
Yeah.
3 million, over 3 million. That is a lot of kids. So
and when you think about like the cycle of abuse, like we've talked about, I mean, they're going to grow up and have kids, and and if we want this cycle to stop, if we want to eradicate domestic violence in our world, the only way we're going to do it is by talking about it. Yeah. Well, talking about the kids, I mean, the thing that is just like burned in my brain forever from when we did prevention ed together, we would always give the kids those purple Penelope House pencils. I don't know if y'all still do that.
We still have them, and we've got pens. Here's our pencil.
We would give all the kids the pencils, and I did prevention ed during the day and then worked doing childcare in the shelter at night.
Yes.
And there were so many kids that I met in class who ended up in the shelter.
Yes.
And they would come up and tell me, I showed my mom the pencil.
Oh, yeah. 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 And we still have our purple stickers. I should have put one of my purple stickers on, but we have our purple stickers. Here it is on my book right here.
Oh, yeah.
And it says kids are special, and it has our crisis line number on it, as do our pencils. And we also, now we have wristbands that we put on the kids that have our crisis line number on the inside of them. So if you want to give it to somebody, give it to them, and it can kind of be incognito. Like you just have that.
It's a good idea.
That number on the inside. So if somebody needs to use that whenever they can, they have it. And, our motto is peace on earth begins at home. Everyone's home has problems. Every family has problems, but your home should be a peaceful place.
Yeah.
You should deal with your problems in a peaceful manner.
Yeah.
And oh, I'm sorry, they're cutting our grass. So, so that motto to me though means everything. Peace on earth begins at home.
Yeah. Well, Joan, for listeners who want to support Penelope House, what are the most helpful ways they can get involved?
Okay, so you can call me because I'm also the volunteer coordinator, and you can volunteer with us. You can volunteer at the shelter. You can volunteer at Penelope's Closet, which is our thrift store. You can also just support the closet by going and shopping there or donating things there. We also have our wish list that is on our website. PenelopeHouse.org has our wish list with all of our urgent needs. And then it also has a link.
Like people need pajamas and toiletries and, things
underwear,
they may not have been able to leave the house with.
Socks and underwear, huge. Pajamas, right? Slippers, stuff like that. Shampoo, conditioner, toothbrushes, toothpaste, that kind of stuff. But if you go on our website, it has a link to our Amazon wish list. So they can always do that as well, to our wish list. And then just supporting our fundraisers like the Mobile Chocolate Festival, that's always helpful. Doing a fundraiser on your own for us, anything like that.
Yeah. And you can always just write a check, right?
You can always just write a check. Yeah. We need money. That's for sure.
Well, what would you say directly to someone listening who may be afraid, isolated, or unsure of whether they're ready to ask for help?
I would say the longer you wait to get help, the worse it's going to get. And every day you wait, it gets more volatile and more scary and dangerous. You have to get help. Please reach out. No one deserves this. I don't care how bad dinner was last night. I don't care if you were grumpy or whatever was going on. You don't deserve to be talked to like a dog. You don't deserve to have someone's hands put on you or have things thrown at you. You don't deserve someone saying things like, I don't want you hanging out with your friends. Any of those kinds of things. You deserve to have a full, happy life, and you deserve to be safe. If you're being hit or slapped or pushed or your hair pulled or being threatened, just a threat. Threats are against the law. Hitting someone is against the law. And no one deserves to be in a home where that's going on.
Yeah.
It's not normal. And the person that's doing that to you, it's easy to say, I love you. I want to show me love. And love is not hitting. Love is not cursing at you or putting you down or calling you a stupid bee. That's not love.
Yeah.
Somebody might be saying they love
you. Have sex when you don't want to.
Oh, making you have sex when you don't want to. And even if you're married, no means no.
Yeah.
And
if somebody's, a lot of people don't know that even today. I mean, I've had clients in the past like 2 years who have told me that they didn't think they could say no to their husband.
Yeah. Even when you're married, you have the right to say no. Your body and your mind belong to you from the day you're born till the day you die. Yeah. It's your mind and your body are yours. They don't belong to somebody else. I don't care how in love you are with somebody, you have the right to say no to them about sex or anything else.
Yeah. Well, Joan, thank you so much for joining us and for the work that Penelope House does to support victims of domestic violence and their children.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. For anyone listening, please know that you're not alone and that help is available. If you or someone you love may be experiencing domestic violence, you can contact Penelope House's 24-hour crisis line at 251-342-8994. And as always, if you're in immediate danger, you call 911. Don't hesitate.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening to the Herlihy Family Law Podcast. We hope this conversation helps raise awareness, reduce stigma, and connect people in our community with the resources and support they need.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I loved having this conversation with you.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to the Herlihy Family Law Podcast. Remember, You don't have to face family law challenges alone. Visit HerlihyFamilyLaw.com or call 251-432-7909 to learn more.